Okay, in this video I am going to demonstrate how to crack the chubb Manifoil Mark IV. This method also probably works on the Mark 1, 2 and 3, but I don't have any of those, so I can't confirm, but I don't see a reason why it shouldn't work on those. Now, the chubb Manifoil Mark IV is a British high security lock that was used by the Ministry of Defense for a pretty long time, but it has been phased out since the late 2000s. The difficulty of this lock is the drive cam design. As you might see, this has two drive cams. One that is directly controlled by the spindle, and the other one effectively acts as another wheel. And the gate of the second drive cam is always directly opposite of the gate of the first drive cam. But both of these drive cams are not perfectly round. They are a little bit eccentric, and opposite of the gate, the radius is a little bit wider. So effectively, these drive cams shadow each other. So you can't feel a contact point if you're just turning the wheel like this. There's no contact point. Well, there is a contact point, but it is somewhere around here, and it's incredibly shallow of an angle, so you can't feel it. And even if you put the secondary drive cam to its gate, and then you try to get a reading like this, you will notice that the fence, or the lever, is actually resting on the wheels. So there is no contact point here. The contact point, again, is somewhere around here and here. And it is, again, a very shallow angle. And you really can't feel this contact because there are these friction rollers at it that have a pretty heavy spring, and they just introduce a lot of friction, so you can't really feel the extra friction of the fence rubbing on the drive cam, of the lever rubbing on the drive cam, and the lever spring itself is just very light. So yeah, that's, maybe you can feel it if you're very good, but I am not that good, so I can't feel it. But I can use a little trick, and that is has to do with sound. Now, this very shallow angle actually makes this method a little bit easier. And to confirm if there is contact between the drive cam and the lever, you can put some impulse into the drive cam. And what you do for that is, I use this screwdriver with a rubber handle, and I lightly tap it against the side of the dial while slowly rotating the dial to the point where I expect contact. And now, when there is no contact, I just hear the sound of the screwdriver hitting the dial. But when there is contact, the impulse will be transferred through the spindle, and the spindle tilts a little bit, and that will make the lever jump. And the lever jumping creates a very distinctive noise, and that noise can be heard. And so what you do to get a reading is you put the put the wheels to the number that you want to check. It's just 0. Then you put the secondary drive cam to its gate, and then you put the primary drive cam to the point where you expect contact. That is somewhere around here. And then you slowly rotate the primary drive cam further while tapping the side of the dial, listening for the noise of the lever jumping. And once you hear the noise, then you stop, and then you note that number, and that is what you graph. And because the angle is so shallow, a tiny change in the elevation of the lever generates a pretty big impact in the graph. So the graphs usually are very, very clear as to where the gates are. Now, this method is of course very easy when you have taken the back cover off and there's nothing blocking the noise at all. But it is a bit more difficult if the cover is on, and it is a lot more difficult if the lock is actually installed in a safe. But I personally do not have a safe that can mount a manifold, so I have no way of trying this method on a mounted lock. However, a friend of mine has tried this method on one of these metal safes that the Ministry of Defense used, and he managed to crack that reliably with this method. And of course, I'm convinced that this noise can be picked up with a contact microphone or a stethoscope or something like that. Like in the movies. And sadly, I don't think this noise shows up very well on the camera. I can just try to demonstrate. This is without contact. And this is with contact. Right. I am not sure if that shows up on camera at all. But you will just have to try for yourself. Now, the angle from which you have to bump the dial differs depending on how the lock is mounted. Now, mine is mounted with a bolt facing down, which I don't think it would be in a real safe ever. So you will have to rotate around the dial with your screwdriver or your mallet or whatever you're using to bump the dial until you can get a reading or until you can generate that noise. Again, you will have to experiment for yourself what angle is best for your application. Now, again, this method works on the Mark IV and probably on all the earlier models, but I don't think it works on any of the later models, at least not on the ones that can actually be bought anywhere. Like the Mark VIII has been showing up on eBay recently a couple of times. It really does not work on that one.